Hello Art 200 and welcome to Chapter 3, Media. This chapter covers the materials that make art. So when we're talking about the materials that make art, we're literally talking about the actual material substance that the artwork is made out of. So we will cover the basics of 2D and 3D art. So when we're talking about 2D art, we'll talk about drawing, we will talk about printmaking, and we'll talk about painting. And then when we're talking about 3D art, of course, we will talk about sculpture. Please review the different techniques in the textbook and also in the images that I post on Moodle, where you can learn about all of these different media, from dry media to printmaking and painting. I also include examples of each medium. So I will discuss in the images the process of making a woodcut print, a woodblock print, and then I will include in the images examples of woodblock prints. There's also a section on new media and alternative media. So for example, you'll see that there's a section on crocheting and knit art and yarn bombing, and you'll see that there are sometimes these sort of traditional art forms like crocheting and knitting that have been repurposed and reused by contemporary artists who are rethinking and reimagining the role that these art forms can have in the art world. We will look at sculpture, and so beyond the sort of traditional forms of sculpture, such as, I don't know, let's say we're looking at Michelangelo's David, for example, we will also look at more modern and contemporary kinds of sculpture. We'll look at kinetic sculpture, so this is sculpture that involves movement. We might also look at sculpture that is sort of time-based. So there's an example in the images of Mineko Greimer's intermittent composition. And we will also look at land art, site-specific sculpture. And we'll look at land art again later in the semester, but there is a small section in the images about site-specific sculpture and land art, so sculpture that takes place sort of in public spaces in the environment, and one really obvious example of that is Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty. And lastly, we look at new media, so we look at photography, video, photo montage, and some of these other more modern art practices. Performance art, for example. So performance art is an art form in which the artist performs an action, and the artist conceives of this action as a visual art. So we're not talking about theater or performing arts or dance, but we're talking about an art form that really focuses on the visual. So I like to think of something like theater being more text-based, right? That there's some kind of script and it's based on a text. And then performance art is something that is really more visual and based on imagery. So that's a sort of summary of what we'll be talking about this week. And if you have any questions, please post them in the forum. And that way, if other students have the same question, then you know, perhaps they can see my answer there. Anyway, other than that, keep up the good work and see you next week.